A black nurse took care of an old billionaire in home care. Later, she discovered something shocking. Zara Monroe smoothed down her crisp white uniform, the starched fabric a stark contrast to the plush velvet of the Prescott Mansion's entryway. Sunlight streamed through the arched windows, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air, a stark reminder of the vastness of the space and the smallness of her presence within it. She took a deep breath, the scent of old money, a blend of beeswax, leather, and something indefinably aged, filling her lungs. This was it. Her first day caring for Leo Prescott, the reclusive billionaire. She adjusted the strap of her medical bag, a familiar weight settling against her shoulder, a small comfort in this unfamiliar environment. The sheer opulence of the place was unsettling. It felt less like a home and more like a museum, each piece meticulously placed, polished to an unnerving gleam. A tall, thin man with a hawk-like nose and impeccably tailored suit materialized from a hallway, his expression as cool and polished as the marble floors. "You must be Ms. Monroe," he said, his voice smooth, almost slippery. "I am Orion Cross, Mr. Prescott's lawyer." "Zara," she corrected gently, extending a hand. Orion Cross took it briefly, his grip firm, almost too firm. His eyes, sharp and assessing, lingered on her for a moment longer than necessary, making her acutely aware of her skin, the deep brown a stark contrast to his pale complexion. She pulled her hand back, a flicker of unease settling in her stomach. "Mr. Prescott is waiting," Orion Cross said, turning and gesturing down the hallway. His movements were precise, economical, as if every gesture had been carefully rehearsed. Zara followed, her footsteps echoing on the polished floor, the silence amplifying the sense of unease. They reached a large, oak-paneled door, and Orion Cross knocked lightly before opening it. The room beyond was dimly lit, heavy drapes blocking out most of the sunlight. The air was thick with the scent of pipe tobacco and something else, something medicinal, something unsettling. In the center of the room, seated in a high-backed leather chair, sat Leo Prescott. Was smaller than she expected, almost frail, his skin papery and translucent. His eyes, however, were sharp, intelligent, and held a flicker of something that looked suspiciously like defiance. He looked up as they entered, his gaze settling on Zara. She felt a sudden wave of empathy wash over her, a reminder of her purpose here. This wasn't about the opulence or the unsettling atmosphere. It was about caring for a man in need. "Monroe," she said, stepping forward. "I'm your new nurse." Leo Prescott grunted in response, his eyes still fixed on her. "You're young," he said, his voice raspy, as if each word cost him effort. "I'm experienced," Zara countered, holding his gaze. She wouldn't let his gruff demeanor intimidate her. She had dealt with difficult patients before, and she knew how to navigate these delicate power dynamics. "Experience doesn't always equate to competence," Leo Prescott retorted, a flicker of amusement in his eyes. He was testing her, she realized, pushing her buttons to see how she would react. "And age doesn't always equate to wisdom," Zara replied, a small smile playing on her lips. She saw a flicker of surprise in his eyes, a hint of respect, perhaps. Orion Cross cleared his throat, breaking the tension. "I'll leave you two to get acquainted," he said, his voice smooth as silk. He turned and exited the room, closing the door behind him with a soft click. The silence that followed was heavy, charged with unspoken words and expectations. Zara turned her attention back to Leo Prescott, her professional demeanor firmly in place. "So," she began, "tell me about your routine." The day unfolded slowly, each hour marked by a subtle power struggle between Zara and Leo Prescott. He was resistant to her care, pushing back against her attempts to monitor his health and ensure his comfort. She, in turn, refused to be intimidated, gently but firmly asserting her authority as his caregiver. As she navigated the complexities of his medication schedule and dietary restrictions, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Leo Prescott than met the eye. He was guarded, secretive, his eyes constantly scanning the room as if searching for hidden threats. That afternoon, while tidying up Leo Prescott's study, Zara noticed something odd. Behind a bookshelf, a section of the wall seemed slightly misaligned. Curiosity piqued. She ran her fingers along the edge of the shelf, feeling a slight give. With a gentle push, the bookshelf swung inward, revealing a small, hidden safe embedded in the wall. Her heart pounded in her chest, a mix of excitement and trepidation coursing through her veins. What secrets did this safe hold? And what did it mean for her role in Leo Prescott's life? The discovery hung in the air, a silent question mark in the opulent silence of the mansion. Zara knew, with a certainty that settled deep in her bones, that this was just the beginning of a much more complicated story. Zara stared at the safe, her mind a whirlwind of conflicting thoughts. Should she open it? Was it even her place to pry into Leo Prescott's secrets? Her hand hovered over the cold metal, drawn to the mystery it held within. She thought of her grandmother, Serafina Lane, a woman of unwavering moral compass, and the lessons she had instilled in Zara from a young age. Integrity, honesty, respect. These were the values that guided her, the principles she lived by. But there was something else tugging at her, a nagging feeling that something wasn't right. Leo Prescott's guarded demeanor, the hushed phone calls, the opulent yet sterile atmosphere of the mansion, it all pointed to a hidden narrative, a story waiting to be uncovered. Zara glanced at the closed door, listening for any sounds from beyond. Silence. She took a deep breath, steeling her resolve. This wasn't about prying. It was about ensuring Leo Prescott's well-being. If there was something he was hiding, something that could be affecting his health or his state of mind, she needed to know. With trembling hands, she reached for the dial of the safe, turning it slowly, listening for the telltale clicks that would unlock its secrets. The safe clicked open, and Zara's breath caught in her throat. Inside, nestled amongst stacks of documents in a small velvet pouch, was a thick, leather-bound journal. Her heart pounded in her chest as she reached for it, her fingers tracing the worn edges of the cover. This was it. The key to understanding the enigma that was Leo Prescott. As she carefully opened the journal, the first entry caught her eye. It was dated several years earlier, the handwriting elegant yet shaky. "My dearest Isolde," it began, the words imbued with a tenderness that belied Leo Prescott's gruff exterior. Zara's eyes widened as she continued reading, the words painting a picture of a man deeply in love, a man wrestling with regret and the weight of unspoken words. The journal chronicled Leo Prescott's relationship with a woman named Isolde Vance, a love story filled with passion, heartbreak, and a secret that threatened to tear them apart. Zara delved deeper into the journal. She discovered that Isolde Vance was not just a lover, but also a philanthropist, a woman dedicated to using her wealth for good. The entries revealed that Leo Prescott had shared her passion, secretly donating vast sums of money to various charities over the years. He had kept these donations hidden, fearing public scrutiny and the potential for exploitation. The journal entries revealed a man torn between his desire for privacy and his commitment to making a positive impact on the world. Zara closed the journal, her mind reeling from the revelations. Leo Prescott, the reclusive billionaire, was not the cold, uncaring man he portrayed himself to be. He was a man burdened by secrets, a man struggling to reconcile his past with his present. The safe, the journal, the hidden donations, they were all pieces of a puzzle that was slowly beginning to take shape. Just as Zara began to piece together the narrative, the door to the study creaked open, and Leo Prescott stood there. His eyes narrowed, his expression a mix of surprise and suspicion. He looked at Zara, then at the open safe, his gaze lingering on the journal in her hands. The silence hung heavy in the air, charged with unspoken questions and the weight of uncovered secrets. "What are you doing?" Leo Prescott asked, his voice raspy, barely a whisper. Zara's heart pounded in her chest, but she held his gaze, her resolve unwavering. "I think we need to talk," she said, her voice steady, the words hanging in the air like a challenge. The confrontation she had been dreading was now inevitable, and she knew, with a certainty that settled deep in her bones, that this was the moment of truth, the moment that would change everything. Leo Prescott's eyes darkened as he took a step into the room, the door closing behind him with an ominous click. Zara felt the weight of his scrutiny, the sharpness of his gaze cutting through her like a knife. She clutched the journal tightly, her knuckles white as she braced herself for the confrontation. "You shouldn't have opened that," Leo said, his voice low and gravelly, laced with an undercurrent of anger. "That is none of your business," Zara inhaled sharply, refusing to back down. "But it is my business, Leo. I'm here to take care of you, and that includes understanding what's going on in your life. You can't hide behind walls and expect to get better." He narrowed his eyes, the tension in the room thickening. "You think you can come into my home and play the moral guardian? You know nothing about me or my life." "I know enough to see that you're struggling," Zara shot back, her voice rising with emotion. "You're alone in this mansion, surrounded by wealth, but empty inside. You hide behind your money, but it doesn't have to be that way." Leo's expression hardened, a mask of defensiveness slipping over his features. "You don't understand. I built this empire, and I did it by keeping my business to myself. I don't owe anyone explanations." "But what about Isolde?" Zara pressed, her heart racing as she mentioned the name from the journal. "What about the woman who loved you, the one you wrote about so passionately?" At the mention of Isolde, a flicker of vulnerability crossed Leo's face, quickly replaced by a steely resolve. "Isolde is dead," he said, his voice flat, devoid of emotion. "Her legacy is not your concern. You're here to care for me, not to dig into my past." Zara took a step closer, her heart pounding. "But that's exactly it, Leo. Your past is affecting your present. You're pushing everyone away, including the people who care about you. You can't keep living like this." Leo flinched at her words, and for a moment, Zara thought she might have reached him. She dared to hope that the walls surrounding his heart might begin to crumble, but then he straightened, the hardness returning to his gaze. I don't need your pity, Zara. I've survived this long without anyone's help, and I intend to continue that way, he said, his tone dismissive. Now leave my journal where you found it. The defiance in his voice stung, but Zara stood her ground. You're not as invincible as you think, Leo. Everyone has their limits, and you're about to hit yours if you don't start facing your demons. For a moment, they stood there, locked in a battle of wills, the air crackling with unspoken tension. Zara could see the turmoil churning behind Leo's eyes, the battle between vulnerability and the desire to maintain his facade of control. Fine, Leo finally said, his voice cold and dismissive. You want to know what's in the journal? My life is a series of mistakes and regrets, and I'm not interested in reliving them with you. Zara felt a pang of sympathy for him, realizing that beneath the layers of arrogance and defensiveness lay a man crippled by fear of exposure and failure. But that's just it, Leo. You don't have to face it alone anymore. You can let someone in. You think you can help me? He scoffed, the bitterness lacing his words. You're just a nurse. You're here to administer medication, not to unravel my life. I'm here to care for you, and that includes understanding you, Zara insisted, her voice steady. If you want to get better, you need to confront your past, not hide from it. Leo turned away, pacing the small room, his fingers running through his thinning hair in frustration. You don't know what you're asking of me. You don't understand the consequences of digging up old wounds. Then help me understand, Zara urged, her heart racing. What are you so afraid of? What's the worst that can happen if you let someone in? He paused, the tension in his body momentarily easing as he contemplated her words. Finally, he turned back to her, vulnerability flickering in his eyes. I'm afraid of losing control. I've built everything I have by keeping my emotions in check. If I let them out, I fear I won't be able to contain the fallout. You're already losing control by pushing everyone away, Zara said, her voice softening. You don't have to go through this alone. Let me help you. For a moment, Leo seemed to wrestle with his emotions, the guard he had so carefully constructed beginning to crack. What do you want from me? He finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I want you to trust me, Zara replied, her heart pounding in her chest. I want to help you find peace, to let go of the weight of the past, but I can't do it without you. Leo looked at her, his expression shifting as he processed her words. Trust is a fragile thing, Zara. You may not realize the stakes involved. I do, she said firmly. But you deserve to be free from the chains of your past. You don't have to carry that burden alone. The silence stretched between them, charged with possibility. Zara held her breath, waiting for Leo's response. Finally, he sighed, the tension in his shoulders easing ever so slightly. Fine, he said, his voice weary. If you want to help me, then we do it on my terms. Zara nodded, relief flooding through her. That's all I ask. Let's start by talking about Isolde, about what she meant to you. It's a step toward healing. Leo hesitated, his gaze flickering toward the journal. You're serious about this, aren't you? I am, Zara replied, her voice steady. I want to understand, and I want to help you. Together, we can confront whatever it is that's holding you back. He studied her for a long moment, the tension in the room palpable. Finally, he nodded, the decision made, though Zara could see he was still guarded. All right, he said slowly. But know this. If I feel you're prying too deep, I will shut you out." "I understand," Zara said, her heart racing with the weight of the moment. "But I promise you, I won't betray your trust." As they settled into a tentative partnership, Zara felt a sense of hope blooming within her. This was just the beginning. The first step toward a healing journey that would inevitably lead them both to confront their pasts. Little did she know, the road ahead would be fraught with unexpected challenges, and the secrets buried within Leo Prescott's walls were far more complicated than she could have ever imagined. The next few days unfolded with a rhythm that felt both familiar and foreign to Zara Monroe. She arrived at the Prescott mansion each morning, the grandeur of the home now juxtaposed with the intimate moments she shared with Leo. They began to peel back the layers of his guarded persona, slowly revealing the man beneath the billionaire facade. Each day, Zara would spend hours tending to Leo's physical needs, but there was a growing emotional component to her care that neither had anticipated. Leo Prescott's fortress of solitude was beginning to crack, and Zara found herself threading the delicate needle between caregiver and confidant. They talked about Isolde, the woman whose love had ignited a passionate flame in Leo's heart, but had also left him vulnerable to heartache. The stories flowed, each one a glimpse into a life filled with both joy and sorrow. One afternoon, as they sat in the sun-drenched study, Leo recounted a memory of Isolde's laughter during a charity gala. "She lit up the room," he said, his voice uncharacteristically soft. "People were drawn to her like moths to a flame. I used to think her kindness would be my salvation." Zara listened intently, her heart aching for the man before her. "It sounds like she had a profound impact on your life," she said gently. "She did," Leo replied, his gaze drifting to the window, where shadows danced in the late afternoon light. "But I pushed her away when she needed me most. I was too focused on my empire to see what mattered." "Leo," Zara said, her voice steady, "you can't keep blaming yourself for the past. It's time to forgive yourself." He turned to her, his expression a mixture of confusion and vulnerability. "Forgiveness? It's not that simple." "I know it's not," Zara replied, her gaze unwavering. "But holding on to guilt will only keep you shackled. You're more than your mistakes." Leo leaned back in his chair, a flicker of realization crossing his features. "What do you know about shackles, Zara?" She hesitated, willing to share a piece of herself for the sake of their connection. "I grew up in a neighborhood that wasn't kind to people like me," she admitted. "I had to fight for every opportunity, every chance to succeed. I've felt the weight of expectations, of past failures, and I've had to learn to let go. It was either that or remain trapped." Leo regarded her with newfound respect, the walls around his heart beginning to crack. "You're stronger than I gave you credit for," he said, and for the first time, she saw a glimmer of admiration in his eyes. "Let's both be stronger," Zara suggested, a smile breaking through the tension. "You don't have to face this alone. You have me." As the days turned into weeks, Zara and Leo settled into a routine that felt strangely familial. They shared meals, exchanged stories, and even laughed together at moments that broke the somber atmosphere. Leo's health had improved under her care, but she sensed that the emotional weight he carried was still heavy. However, as Zara began to feel more comfortable in her role, she also noticed subtle changes in Leo's behavior. He was more open, yes, but there were times when he would stare out the window, lost in thought, his expression darkening. There were also moments when he received phone calls that sent him into a spiral of anxiety. He would pace the room, muttering under his breath, and Zara could see the tension building in his shoulders. One afternoon, as she prepared tea in the kitchen, she overheard Leo's voice raised in anger during one of those phone calls. Curious and concerned, she paused, straining to hear the details. "Don't you dare threaten me," Leo snapped, his tone sharp and defensive. "I've made my decision, and you will respect it. If you try to interfere, I'll make sure you regret it." Zara's pulse quickened. Who was he talking to? What kind of threat could shake the mighty Leo Prescott? She felt a knot of concern tighten in her stomach, but she knew better than to eavesdrop. Instead, she focused on the task at hand, forcing herself to remain composed. When Leo finally exited the call, his face was pale, a stark contrast to the usual fire in his eyes. Zara approached him, concern etched on her face. "Is everything all right?" He looked at her, and for a moment, she thought she saw a flicker of vulnerability. "It's nothing," he said tersely, turning away. Zara pressed on, her instincts telling her this was important. "It doesn't seem like nothing. You can talk to me, Leo. I'm here to help." He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck in frustration. "I appreciate your concern, Zara, but there are things you wouldn't understand. This is my life, not a therapy session." Zara crossed her arms, refusing to let him shut her out. "Maybe it should be a therapy session. You're carrying a lot on your shoulders, and it's okay to ask for help." Leo's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, Zara feared she had overstepped. "You don't know what asking for help can cost, Zara," he replied, his voice low. "There are consequences to every action, things you can't take back." "Then let me help you navigate those consequences," Zara urged, her heart racing. "You don't have to go through this alone. I may just be your nurse, but I care about you, about your well-being." Leo's expression softened, and she could see the weight of his burdens pressing down on him. "It's complicated," he said quietly. "I've made promises to people who don't have my best interests at heart. They're just waiting for me to fall." "Who are these people?" Zara asked gently, her concern deepening. Leo hesitated, his gaze flickering away. "They're business associates, people who think they can control me through fear." Zara stepped closer, her heart racing. "You're the one in control, Leo. You don't have to let them dictate your life. You have the power to change the narrative." He looked at her, his expression shifting, as if he were weighing her words. "I'm not sure it's that simple," he said, his voice strained. "Maybe not simple, but possible," Zara said, her confidence unwavering. "You've already started taking steps to reclaim your life by letting me in. Don't stop now." Leo's eyes searched hers, a storm of emotion swirling within. Finally, he nodded slowly, the tension in his shoulders easing slightly. "I'll think about it," he said, and for the first time, she felt a flicker of hope. But just as Zara thought they were making progress, the doorbell rang, echoing through the mansion like a tolling bell. Leo's expression shifted to one of dread, his earlier vulnerability disappearing in an instant. "Who is it?" Zara asked, sensing the change in atmosphere. "It's probably just a delivery," Leo replied, his tone clipped. Zara wasn't convinced. She could see the tension in his body, the way his jaw clenched as he moved toward the door. "Let me answer it. You don't have to face this alone." But Leo shook his head, determination etched on his face. "No. I'll handle it." As he opened the door, Zara's heart raced. She could only see Leo's back, but she could hear muffled voices and the sudden shift in Leo's demeanor. He stood rigid, and the tension in the air thickened. "Leo, we need to talk," a voice said, low and authoritative. Zara's stomach dropped as she recognized that tone. It was the voice of someone who had power over him. "Not now," Leo replied, his voice strained. The door opened wider, revealing a tall figure with slicked-back hair and an expensive suit. Zara's breath caught in her throat as she recognized the man standing before Leo. Orion Cross. "Now is exactly when we need to talk," Orion said, his voice smooth but laced with menace. "You've made some decisions that could affect everything, Leo. You need to reconsider." Zara took a step back, instincts screaming at her to leave the room, to let Leo handle this confrontation alone. But a sense of duty tugged at her, urging her to stay. "Orion, this isn't the time," Leo said, his voice low, a hint of desperation creeping in. "Then when is the time?" Orion shot back, stepping further into the foyer. "You can't hide forever. We have a business to run, and you're jeopardizing everything." Zara's heart raced as she watched the exchange. She could feel the tension mounting, a storm brewing between the two men. Leo's posture stiffened, and Zara could see the strain on his face as he struggled to maintain his composure. "Get out," Leo said, his voice firm but strained. "I don't want to talk to you right now." "Then you're making a mistake," Orion replied, his tone chilling. "You think you're in control, but you're not. There are forces at play here that you don't fully understand." The weight of the moment pressed down on Zara, and she felt a surge of determination. She stepped forward, her voice steady. "Leo deserves to make his own choices, Orion. He's not a puppet for you to control." Orion turned to her, surprise flickering across his features. "And who are you to speak for him? You're just a nurse." "I'm more than just a nurse," Zara said, her voice steady even as her heart raced. "I'm here to help Leo, to support him in making decisions about his life. He's not your property, Orion." "Sure." Orion's expression shifted, a blend of irritation and amusement crossing his face. "You think you can just waltz in here and dictate terms? This is business, lady. Personal feelings don't factor into the equation." Zara felt a surge of protectiveness wash over her as she glanced at Leo, who stood in the doorway looking trapped between two worlds. This isn't just business to Leo. It's about his life, his choices. You have no right to pressure him like this. Leo's eyes darted between the two of them, an internal struggle playing out on his face. "Zara, he started, but Orion cut him off. "Enough!" Orion snapped, his voice reverberating against the marble walls. "Leo, you need to understand that your decisions have consequences. You're jeopardizing everything we've built together." "What you've built," Leo corrected, his tone dropping into a deeper register. "I never wanted any of this. You're the one who's obsessed with control." "Control is what keeps you safe," Orion replied, his demeanor shifting from authoritative to almost conspiratorial. "You've got enemies, Leo. People who want to tear you down. This little nurse here won't protect you when the wolves come knocking." Zara felt a chill at Orion's words. Enemies? Wolves? She had sensed the undertones of danger surrounding Leo, but hearing it spoken so plainly sent a shiver down her spine. "Leo is strong enough to handle his own life," she said firmly, refusing to back down. "He doesn't need you to dictate his decisions." "Is that right?" Orion asked, his eyes narrowing. "Then why don't you ask him what he really wants? Or is it easier to play the hero? You're in over your head, nurse." "Enough!" Leo shouted, his voice booming through the space, surprising both Zara and Orion. I'm tired of being treated like a child who needs to be saved or a pawn in your game. I'm tired of being scared of my own skin. Zara's heart raced at the newfound fire in Leo's voice. He was standing up for himself, and she could see the flicker of old strength returning. What I want is to make my own choices, he continued, his gaze unwavering. I want to decide what happens to my life, and I'm done letting you manipulate me. Orion's face darkened, the tension in the room escalating. You think you can just walk away from this, Leo? You're a fool if you believe that. You're too deep in this to back out now. I'll take my chances, Leo replied, his voice steady. I'll figure it out without you. Zara stepped closer to Leo, feeling the weight of his decision. We'll figure it out together, she said softly, her heart racing. You don't have to do this alone. Orion scoffed, shaking his head. You'll regret this, Leo. When everything falls apart, don't come crawling back to me. As Orion turned to leave, Zara felt a surge of anger. You can't just threaten him and walk away, she called out, her voice ringing with defiance. Orion paused at the door, glancing back at them. I don't need to threaten. You're already in danger, Leo. You just don't know it yet. With that, he stepped out into the hallway, leaving the tension crackling in the air behind him. The silence that followed was heavy and oppressive. Zara turned to Leo, her heart pounding with the weight of the confrontation. Are you okay? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Leo ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident in his features. I don't know, Zara. I thought I could handle this on my own, but it's becoming harder every day. You're not alone, she insisted, stepping closer to him. You've got me. We can find a way to deal with this together. He met her gaze, and for a moment Zara saw a flicker of hope in his eyes. I appreciate you being here, he said quietly, the fight leaving his voice. But I don't want to drag you into my mess. It's already too late for that, Zara replied, her determination unwavering. You've opened up to me. That means something. I want to help you navigate this. Leo leaned against the wall, his expression pensive. What if I can't? What if I'm not strong enough to face what's coming? You are strong, Leo, Zara said, her voice firm. You've built an empire. You've faced challenges before. This is just another battle, and I'll be right beside you. The tension in Leo's shoulders eased slightly as he considered her words. I don't want to put you at risk, he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. You're worth the risk, Zara replied, her heart racing. This isn't just about you. It's about both of us. We can tackle whatever comes next together. Leo's gaze softened, and Zara felt a warmth in her chest. Thank you, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I didn't expect to find someone like you in my life. I didn't expect to find someone like you either, Zara admitted, a hint of a smile breaking through. But here we are. As the weight of the situation began to lift, Zara felt a renewed sense of purpose. They had a long road ahead of them, and the threats were looming, but together, they could face whatever challenges awaited. Just as they began to breathe easier, the doorbell rang again, and Leo's expression hardened. It's probably Orion again, he said, annoyance creeping into his tone. Let me handle it this time, Zara suggested, hoping to ease the tension. You stay here and take a moment. Leo hesitated, but nodded, the lines of worry still etched on his forehead. Zara took a deep breath, steeling herself as she walked toward the door. Opening it, she found a delivery man standing there, his arms laden with packages. Delivery for Mr. Prescott, he said, flashing a friendly smile. Just a moment, Zara replied, stepping aside to let him in. She felt a surge of relief. It was just a delivery. Nothing sinister. The man began to unload the boxes, and Zara's interest piqued as she caught sight of the return address. "What's in these?" she asked, glancing at the labels. "Just some supplies and paperwork from the office," the delivery man replied, his voice cheerful. "You know how it is, always something needing attention." As he sorted through the boxes, Zara felt a sense of normalcy wash over her. It was a brief respite in the midst of chaos, a moment of peace in Leo's tumultuous world. But as she turned to call Leo over, she noticed a glimmer of something shiny peeking out from one of the boxes. Curiosity piqued. Zara moved closer, her heart racing as she reached for it. Pulling it out, she realized it was a small, ornate key, beautifully crafted and clearly of significant value. "What is this?" she asked, holding it up for the delivery man to see. The man's smile faltered, and he glanced around nervously. I'm not sure. It must have been included by mistake." "Really?" Zara pressed, a sense of unease creeping in. "This doesn't seem like the usual office supply. Is there a specific place it goes?" "Look, I really shouldn't," the delivery man started, but Zara didn't let him finish. "Just tell me," she insisted, her voice firm. "Where does this key belong?" The delivery man shifted uneasily, glancing toward the door as if gauging an escape route. "I really can't say. It's not my place to disclose that." Zara's heart raced with realization. "It might be important," she pressed. "You're delivering it to Leo Prescott. If this key unlocks something significant, it could be related to the threats he's facing." The man hesitated, then sighed, his shoulders slumping in defeat. "Fine. Just don't mention my name, all right? There's a storage unit he owns. It might unlock something there, something he's been keeping hidden." Zara's pulse quickened. "A storage unit? Why would he have something in a storage unit?" "He's been trying to keep it under wraps," the delivery man admitted, his voice low. "It's not my place to say more." As he finished unloading the boxes, Zara's mind raced. A storage unit? What could Leo possibly be hiding there? And why was it significant enough to warrant a secret? "Thank you," she said, her mind reeling as the delivery man exited the mansion. When she returned to the study, Leo looked up, his expression curious. "What was that all about?" Zara held out the key, her heart racing as she explained. "I found this in one of the packages. The delivery man mentioned a storage unit you own. What is it?" Leo's face paled as he took the key from her, turning it over in his hands. I had forgotten about that," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Forgotten?" Zara pressed, concern tightening her chest. "What's in that storage unit, Leo?" Leo's expression shifted, a storm of emotions crossing his features. The key seemed to weigh heavily in his hand, as if it were not just a physical object, but a tangible representation of everything he had tried to bury. "It's complicated," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. Zara stepped closer, her heart racing. "Complicated how? If it's something important, we need to confront it. You can't keep hiding from your past." He glanced at the door, then back at the key, his expression torn. "I didn't want to think about it. I thought I could just move on. But the truth is, I have been holding on to things that should have been dealt with long ago." "Then let's deal with it together," Zara urged, her voice steady. "You can trust me. Whatever is in that storage unit, we can face it. But you have to be honest with yourself first." Leo took a deep breath, his shoulders sagging as he considered her words. It's a unit filled with documents and belongings from my life with Isolde. I kept it all after she passed away. Her clothes, her journals, our plans for the future. It felt too painful to let go. And then there are the business records. Things I thought I'd never need again. Zara's heart ached for him. It's okay to hold on to memories, Leo. But you also have to let go of the pain that comes with them. You can't let your past control your present or future. Leo's gaze flickered to the key again, and Zara could see the conflict waging within him. I'm afraid, he admitted, his voice trembling. Afraid of what I'll find when I open that door. What if it only brings back the pain? Then we'll face it together, Zara reassured him, taking a step closer. You don't have to do this alone. I'll be there with you. For a moment, Leo seemed to consider her offer, his walls beginning to crumble beneath the weight of her sincerity. You really want to help me? He asked, his voice filled with uncertainty. I wouldn't have it any other way, she replied, her heart racing with hope. Let's go there together. We can face whatever is inside, and I promise you, I'll support you. Leo finally nodded, the resolve returning to his eyes. All right, let's do it. Zara felt a surge of determination as they made plans to visit the storage unit. She knew this was a crucial step in Leo's journey toward healing, but she also recognized that it would require them both to confront the ghosts of the past. They spent the rest of the day preparing, gathering their thoughts and discussing what they might find. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the mansion, Zara felt a sense of trepidation, but also a flicker of hope. They were embarking on a journey that would lead them to the heart of Leo's struggles, and she was determined to help him find the strength to confront it. The following morning, they drove to the storage unit, the air thick with anticipation and unspoken fears. The facility was located in a quiet part of town, a stark contrast to the grandeur of the Prescott mansion. As they approached the unit, Zara could see the tension building in Leo's posture. He gripped the steering wheel tightly, knuckles white with anxiety. Are you sure you want to do this? Zara asked gently, sensing his unease. Leo took a deep breath, exhaling slowly. I have to. I've let this haunt me for too long. It's time to face it. They parked and walked toward the unit, the air heavy with unspoken words. As they reached the door, Leo hesitated, his hand hovering over the lock. What if I'm not ready for this? He murmured, doubt creeping into his voice. You're stronger than you think, Zara said, placing a reassuring hand on his arm. You've already taken a huge step by coming here. Trust yourself. With a determined nod, Leo inserted the key into the lock and turned it. The door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit space filled with boxes and forgotten memories. Dust motes danced in the air, and a musty smell wafted out, as if the room had been trapped in time. Zara stepped inside first, her heart racing as she surveyed the contents. There were boxes labeled with Isolde's name, along with several others that appeared to contain business records and financial documents. She felt a pang of sadness at the sight of Isolde's belongings, a reminder of the life Leo had once shared with her. Leo followed closely behind, his gaze flickering around the room. I haven't been here in years, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. It's like a museum of my regrets. Zara turned to him, her heart aching. It's not just regrets, Leo. It's also a testament to a life you lived, to love and memories that shaped you. You don't have to be ashamed of that. As they began to sort through the boxes, Leo opened one labeled Isolde's clothes. Inside, he found a delicate silk dress its deep blue color vibrant even in the dim light. He picked it up gently, his fingers brushing against the fabric as memories flooded back. This was her favorite dress, he said, his voice thick with emotion. She wore it to our first charity gala. She looked radiant. Zara watched him closely, her heart aching for the pain he was experiencing. It's okay to remember the good times, Leo, she said softly. You don't have to forget her to move forward. He nodded, tears brimming in his eyes as he placed the dress back in the box. I don't know how to let go. It feels like if I do, I'll be losing her all over again. You're not losing her, Zara reassured him, stepping closer. You're honoring her by remembering the moments you shared, and you can carry those memories with you as you move forward. Leo took a deep breath, the tension in his shoulders easing slightly as he processed her words. You make it sound so easy, he said, a hint of a smile breaking through his sadness. It's not easy, Zara replied, her expression earnest, but it's necessary. We can't let the past dictate our future. We have to choose how we want to remember those we've lost. They continued to sort through the boxes, each item sparking memories and emotions. As they unearthed Isolde's journals, Leo's expression shifted to one of trepidation. I haven't read these since she passed, he admitted, his voice trembling. What if they bring back too much pain? C'est tout. Then we'll read them together, Zara offered, her heart pounding. You don't have to face this alone. With a nod of determination, Leo opened the first journal, the pages yellowed with age. As he began to read, his voice wavered, but Zara could see the flicker of connection rekindling. Isolde's words painted a vivid picture of their life together, filled with love, laughter, and dreams that had once felt so possible. This is a glimpse into her soul, Leo said, his voice thick with emotion. She had such hopes for the future. Maybe it's time to revisit those hopes, Zara suggested gently. What did you two dream about? Leo looked up, surprise etched on his features. We talked about starting a foundation together, something to honor her work and carry on her legacy. Then let's do it, Zara urged, her heart racing as she saw the spark of inspiration igniting in his eyes. You can still create that foundation. You can still help others in her name. Do you really think it's possible? Leo asked, a hint of vulnerability breaking through his tough exterior. I know it is, Zara replied, her voice steady. You have the resources, the passion, and the drive. You just need to believe in yourself again. As they continued to sift through the memories, Zara felt a sense of purpose blossoming within her. She knew that this journey was just beginning, but together, they could turn the pain of the past into something meaningful. However, as they explored the contents of the storage unit, Zara couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to uncover. The key had opened a door, but what other secrets lay hidden within the boxes? Just as she was about to voice her concerns, Leo's phone buzzed in his pocket, breaking the moment. He pulled it out, his expression darkening as he read the message. It's Orion, he said, his voice tense. He wants to meet. Zara's heart sank. Now? After everything? Leo nodded, frustration evident in his features. He won't take no for an answer. He's relentless. Then let's confront him together, Zara suggested, determination fueling her resolve. You're not facing him alone. You've come too far to back down now. Leo hesitated, the weight of the situation hanging heavy in the air. What if he tries to manipulate me again? What if he threatens you? Zara took a step closer, her gaze steady. We'll handle it together. You've already shown incredible strength today. Don't let him intimidate you. You're in control of your life now. Leo took a deep breath, the tension in his shoulders easing slightly as he considered her words. All right, he said finally, his resolve hardening. Let's confront him. I won't let him dictate my life any longer. Zara felt a surge of pride as she watched Leo reclaim his power. That's the spirit, she said, her voice steady. We'll face this head on. After gathering their things, they left the storage unit, the air outside feeling different, lighter, as if the weight of the past had begun to lift. Zara could feel the adrenaline coursing through her veins as they drove back to the Prescott mansion, the anticipation of the confrontation looming ahead. As they arrived, Zara glanced at Leo, his expression a mixture of determination and anxiety. You ready for this? She asked, her heart racing. I'm as ready as I'll ever be, Leo replied, his voice firm. I won't let him manipulate me anymore. Together, they stepped into the mansion, the familiar surroundings now feeling charged with purpose. They made their way to the study, where Leo had always conducted his business dealings, a space that had become a battleground of sorts. Zara could see the tension in Leo's posture as he prepared to face Orion. Just remember, you're in control, Zara reminded him, placing a reassuring hand on his arm. Stay focused on what you want. Leo nodded, his expression resolute. I won't let him sway me. As they waited for Orion to arrive, Leo paced the room, his movements restless. Zara could sense the anticipation building within him. What are you thinking? She asked, trying to keep the atmosphere calm. Just thinking about how much I've let him dictate my life, Leo admitted, his voice low. I should have stood up to him a long time ago. You're doing it now, Zara encouraged. That's what matters. Just then, the door swung open, and Orion entered, his demeanor as polished as ever. Leo, we need to talk, he said, his voice smooth but laced with an undercurrent of tension. He glanced at Zara, his expression shifting to one of irritation. And who is this? This is Zara Monroe, my nurse, Leo said, his tone clipped. She's here to support me. Orion's eyes narrowed, a flicker of annoyance crossing his face. I don't see why you need her here for this conversation. It's a private matter. I want her here, Leo replied firmly, stepping slightly in front of Zara as if to shield her from Orion's scrutiny. She's part of my support system now, and I won't hide that from you. Orion's expression darkened, but he quickly masked it with feigned indifference. Very well, he said, crossing his arms. Let's get to the point. You've been making decisions that could jeopardize everything we've worked for. You need to understand the gravity of the situation. I understand it just fine, Leo shot back, his voice rising with frustration. I'm tired of you treating me like a child who can't think for himself. Orion's demeanor shifted, his eyes narrowing as he leaned in closer. You think you can just walk away from this? You have a reputation to uphold, Leo. People are watching, and they won't hesitate to exploit any weakness. Zara felt a chill run down her spine at Orion's words. She could sense the manipulation lurking beneath the surface, the way he tried to twist Leo's insecurities against him. You're trying to scare him, she said, her voice steady. That's not going to work. Orion turned his attention to her, a smirk playing at the corners of his lips. And you are? Just a nurse who thinks she can play therapist? You have no idea what you're stepping into. Maybe not, Zara replied, her resolve unshaken. But I know that Leo deserves to make his own choices, free from your intimidation tactics. Leo glanced at Zara, a flicker of gratitude crossing his face. She's right, Orion. I'm done being manipulated. I won't let you control my life any longer. The tension in the room escalated as Orion's expression darkened. You're making a grave mistake, Leo, You have no idea what kind of forces you're dealing with. If you think you can just dismiss me, you're sorely mistaken. I'm not dismissing you, Leo countered, his voice steady. I'm taking control of my own life. I'm tired of living in fear of what might happen. I need to make my own decisions. Fear isn't the issue here, Leo. It's reality, Orion snapped, his voice rising. You're walking a dangerous path. You think that by cutting ties with me, you're freeing yourself, but you're only opening the door to chaos. Zara felt a surge of anger at Orion's condescending tone. You're the one creating chaos, she said, stepping closer to Leo. All you care about is maintaining your power. You don't care about what's best for him. Orion regarded her with disdain, his expression hardening. You're in over your head, nurse. You don't know the stakes here. Then enlighten me, Zara shot back, refusing to back down. What are the stakes? Keeping Leo under your thumb? Enough, Leo shouted, his voice echoing through the room. I won't be your pawn anymore, Orion. You've manipulated me long enough. Orion's eyes narrowed, and Zara could see the threat brewing beneath the surface. You think you can just walk away? There will be consequences, Leo. I hope you're prepared for what's coming. With that, Orion turned on his heel and stormed out of the study, leaving a heavy silence in his wake. Zara could feel the tension in the air, the weight of uncertainty pressing down on them. Leo, she said softly, stepping closer. Are you all right? He ran a hand through his hair, frustration etched on his face. I thought I was ready to confront him, but now I feel more uncertain than ever. Zara placed a comforting hand on his arm. You stood up for yourself, and that's what matters. This is just the beginning, and it won't be easy. Leo met her gaze, vulnerability breaking through the cracks in his facade. What if he really does have power over me? What if I've made a mistake? You haven't made a mistake, Zara assured him, her voice steady. You're taking control of your life, and that's a powerful step. You can't let fear dictate your choices. But what about those threats he mentioned? Leo asked, his voice low. What if there really are consequences? Zara held his gaze, determination shining in her eyes. Then we'll face them together. You're not alone in this. We'll figure it out, one step at a time. As they stood together in the aftermath of the confrontation, Zara felt a sense of purpose blooming within her. They were on a path toward healing, but it would be a journey filled with challenges. Leo took a deep breath, his expression firming as he considered her words. You're right. I can't let him control me any longer. I need to reclaim my life. Zara smiled, her heart swelling with pride. That's the spirit. You're stronger than you realize, Leo. As they began to strategize their next steps, Zara couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the brink of something significant. The battle against Orion was just beginning, and while the challenges ahead were daunting, Zara felt a renewed sense of hope. Together, they would navigate the complexities of Leo's past and fight for the future he truly desired. But as they prepared to face the unknown, Zara couldn't ignore the lingering sense of danger that hung in the air. Orion's parting words echoed in her mind, a reminder that the stakes were higher than they had anticipated. Little did they know, the confrontation with Orion was only the beginning. The true test of their resolve was yet to come, and the shadows of the past were not so easily dispelled. The confrontation with Orion Cross had left Leo Prescott shaken but resolute. With Zara by his side, he began to reclaim his life piece by piece. They devised a plan to establish the foundation that he and Isolde had once dreamt of together, channeling his pain into a powerful legacy that would honor her memory. As weeks turned into months, Leo's transformation became evident. He faced his fears head-on, tackling the business decisions he had long avoided. With Zara's support, he navigated the complexities of his finances, ensuring that the foundation would not only serve as a tribute to Isolde, but also help those in need. Through their joint efforts, Leo learned to find strength in vulnerability. The storage unit that had once represented his burdens became a symbol of liberation. Together, they sorted through Isolde's belongings, sharing stories and remembering the love they had shared. Each item they uncovered added layers to Leo's healing process, allowing him to let go of guilt while embracing the joy of their memories. However, Orion's shadow still loomed, and Leo knew that he had to stand firm against any further manipulation. With Zara's encouragement, he called a meeting with Orion to discuss the future of his business without the lawyer's interference. The meeting was tense, but Leo's newfound confidence shone through. He articulated his vision for the foundation and his commitment to making decisions that aligned with his values. Orion's attempts to intimidate him fell flat against Leo's resolve. "I'm done living in your shadow," Leo declared, his voice steady. "This is my life, and I will no longer let you dictate my choices." As Orion left the meeting, a flicker of frustration crossed his face, but for the first time, Leo felt a sense of empowerment. He had taken control of his life, and he knew that he was capable of standing up for himself. With the foundation officially established and a new chapter beginning, Leo and Zara became partners in more ways than one. Their bond deepened as they worked together to create a meaningful impact in the community, helping those who had faced struggles similar to their own. The journey had been fraught with challenges, but Leo had emerged stronger, more resilient, and ready to embrace the future. He had learned the value of trust, not just in others, but in himself. Zara had shown him that vulnerability could be a source of strength, and together, they would navigate whatever came next. As they stood outside the Foundation's first community event, surrounded by smiles and laughter, Leo turned to Zara, gratitude flooding his heart. "I couldn't have done this without you," he said, his voice filled with sincerity. Zara smiled back, her heart full. "You did this, Leo. You found your strength. I just helped you see it." Together, they watched as their dreams unfolded, ready to embrace the challenges ahead. In that moment, they knew they were not only building a foundation, but also creating a future filled with hope and possibility. You've made it to the end. If you enjoyed this story, I am confident that you'll love the next one appearing on the screen now. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and please give this video a like. I'll see you in the next one.